Okay, guys, welcome back. We'd like to go now to page 308 in your agendas, and we've got Kirsten to talk to this, supported by Lorna. Kirsten.
Good morning. This report, I'll take this report as read. This report is in relation to the Whangamatā Information Centre. We took a report to the community board looking to have the operator renew their contract for another 3 years. There had been some confusion about an extra sum of money that they thought that some of the council and community members thought that they were going to be getting an extra $30,000 on top of their current funding. And so it was decided to place the report on hold until the community board and councillors had had a chance to review the discrepancies around the extra funding. So this report is basically just asking council to allow the current operators of the Whangamatā Community Board to have an extra 3 months in their current contract to enable the community board to move forward with the funding queries that they've had.
Thank you, Kirsten. Yes, Martin first.
Yeah, hi, Kirsten. Can I just ask a question, not specifically about the 3-month extension, but on page 309, it says Whangamatā don't currently pay a lease for it, but so lots of the other information centres pay that, the 350. Is that just historically always been like that?
That's correct, Martin. I am having our property team look into this, but historically that site, it's zoned a reserve, and so it hasn't been able to have any commercial type operation on it, but our property team are looking into that for me.
Okay, I mean, I'm not suggesting that they charge them. I was just wondering about that.
Yeah.
Inconsistency. Thank you.
Inconsistencies, yeah.
Thank you. Rika.
I was happy to move the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Yeah, when John. Yeah. Rika's asked to move it. Do we have a seconder? I'll second it. Okay. So, John.
I just want to clarify something. The additional funding, in reading the minutes of the community board meeting, created quite a bit of discussion. And I thought that I had read that the view was that you wanted to be able to provide the opportunity with the additional funding of going out to see if there were other parties interested also in providing a tender for it. So it was really seeking an extension of time. Is that the correct understanding? And
no.
So the 30,000 is really still on the table. It's just looking at, or it could come back into play depending on this extra 3-month period.
Yeah, we've gone back to the status quo, really, where the $54,000 is the expressions of interest being made, and the $30,000 is yet to be decided where it comes from. And it has come from retaining earnings in the past, but we know there's a wash-up period, and that won't happen until down the line. And I think that's why the 3 months is given that surety around the contract. Is that right, Kirsten, until that's decided?
The 3 months is allowing the community board to have a meeting to discuss a written application which has been received from the current operators requesting an extra $30,000. I think of your retained earnings.
Yeah, so
or discretionary fund.
Clarity around it. When it was proposed during the council meeting by myself, there was no community board members here, and they wanted to discuss it. And that's why I revoked it and said, well, okay, it's fair enough. It's empowerment that they have a decision. So I went back for that decision. In that meeting, we discussed about, if we had the $30,000 in the budget, we would have gone out for expressions of interest on $80,000. But at the moment, that hasn't happened. It's on $54,000 or whatever it is. So that's the current status. Any more discussion? Okay, so it's been moved by Rebecca and seconded by me to receive the Whangamatā Information Centre Funding Agreement Extension Report dated 27 June 2024. Agrees to the extension of 3 months of the current funding agreement for the Whangamatā Information Centre to allow the Whangamatā Community Board time to review the current funding allocation for the Information Centre. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to 311. Just Sean and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Through the chair, we'll go to 319 because the attachments follow.
oh yes, thank you.
And we do have Jess online too to be able to answer any questions from this report.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Leslie. You'd like to walk us through this?
Yes, kia ora, good morning, elected members. So this report is seeking elected members' endorsement of items of feedback or submissions that council staff have made, well, the Chief Executive officially has made under delegation to a number of consultation processes that have occurred since in between the scheduled council meetings. So there was no opportunity to seek elected members' approval of the submissions or feedback before they were given. So the report sets out a bit of background about what those items were, what staff said in the submissions. A copy of the text of the submissions is attached in the various attachments, and there were various staff involved in each of the different items. They're either here in the room or available online to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Leslie, got any comment?
No, no further comment from me, thank you.
Okay, so we have read these. They're quite detailed submissions, sometimes under very short timeframes, which makes them very high pressure to get them in time and make them sensible. I know that we've had, I think Peter spoke to one, is that right, recently? Is that the Three Waters one? So you've had a chance to read them. I'd like to recommendations to first of all receive them and then endorse them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all in one. Any comments before we move into that? Yes, Delhi.
Huge kudos to Aileen and the team and endorsing that very fast turnaround, and also the level of detail and attention to detail in these pieces of legislation is mind-blowing. It's almost like doing a university degree. So for those staff that have put that mahi in and created these submissions under Aileen's guidance and oversight, well done. I'd like to endorse them all.
Thanks, Delhi. Good comments. And I hope they listen.
And just to acknowledge the really fast feedback from councillors, it was really helpful. It actually we changed quite a few things in the submissions as a result of it, and the turnaround, that was just amazing. So I think the staff really, really appreciated the engagement, and that's, 5 pieces of legislation and policies we operate under. There's only 139 that we operate under, so the government may keep them coming for a wee while yet.
You think that's not the end? Okay. Okay, so anybody else? Yes, Martin.
Yeah, I'm just supporting what others have said, and I particularly like the fact that on some you've looked at what other organisations and councils and things have done, and either incorporated or been able to say you support their ones as well. And yes, they've been very fast turnarounds, but we've very much appreciated being able to see them, and I happily endorse the ones that you've done.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, is Robin still online? Yes. Robin, have you got any comment?
No, just really what everybody else has said. It's been great to be able to have the opportunity to input into these. So thank you for that opportunity. And thank you to the elected members who were able to do that. And I'm really happy to move that we accept all of the endorsements.
Okay, moved by Robin. You got a seconder? Dally? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Sian. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to page 349 in our agendas. Proposed new speed limit rule, approval of submission to the Ministry of Transport. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Sian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In a slight departure from the previous item, we do actually have time for elected members to view a draft of what the council staff have put together as a draft submission on the government's proposed new speed limit rule. My colleague Ed is here with the technical expertise to answer any questions that you might have. Again, the report sets out a bit of background information on what the ministry is proposing to do in the new speed limit rule. Reasonably well publicised, the government's intentions, the policy intentions around this to take a different approach to how speed limits are going to be set under their watch. And the draft submission is attached, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ed, do you like to say something?
Through the chair, this is something that we've been waiting for approximately 9 months. The proposed speed limit changes are not quite what we would anticipate, and obviously not what we would support in certain areas. There are issues that we've seen with the proposals, which Leslie's report, Sian's report highlights. I'm quite happy to take any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions for Ed or Sian? Are you all comfortable where we are with this? Martin?
I'm hugely frustrated with the process that, well, the previous government and now the new government has put in, and my standard response now when people say, ask me about speed limits and can we do this or can we not do that, is pretty much just to throw my hands up in the air, and I suspect it must be equally frustrating for roading managers and departments around the whole country. And yeah, even if this comes in, there's no guarantee that another government will come along and change things again, and I just shudder about the massive amount of bureaucracy that is around this, and I support the submission that you're making, support all the points in there, and yeah, I would just really like the road controlling authority, us, actually sometimes being able to make some decisions about our roads, but that looks like it's... Anyway, I'll stop there.
Well done getting that out, so you feel better. Okay. I don't know if it's going to change, but any other questions for the panel? Okay, right, I'll just do the recommendations. First of all, I'd like a mover.
Through the chair,
yeah.
There's one additional item. It was referenced in the discussion on the previous report. We look at the submissions that are made by other entities.
Yeah.
And very late yesterday, we received a copy of the submission from the Institute of Traffic.
It's the Traffic Engineering New Zealand organisation. They've made a submission on that, which I believe has been circulated to elected members. It did arrive very late yesterday. I had a chance this morning to go through it in some detail, and whilst there are areas where our report matches theirs, there are also areas where there is significant discrepancies. One of those areas would be that they actually support the ability of ministers to set ministers' objectives on speed limits, whereas we are recommending that that is refused. So whilst there are national bodies also submitting on this, and TrapENS is one of those, at the moment, I have to highlight that there is a discrepancy between what we would be recommending to staff and what the national body would be recommending.
So will you submit another submission, or what will you do?
No, we were thinking that we would ask elected members to include some support for that submission in the council's submission, but given there are these areas where there's a bit of discrepancy, it might lead to some confusion on the receiving agency to reconcile. They said they supported it, but then they've said something different. So while there's a lot of content in that submission that goes into a lot more detail than the council's and is very good, in the end, we've decided that it's probably best to not indicate support because of these discrepancies, but we just wanted to draw to your attention the fact that it existed and we have considered it.
That's good. Give us some clarity around that. Thank you. Very good. Okay, so let's move forward. So we have a mover, Peter, a seconder, Dally. Okay, so I'm going to read the recommendations. That the Thames-Coromandel District Council receive the proposed new speed limit rule approval of submission to the Ministry of Transport report dated 18 June 2024. Approves the draft submission to the Land Transport Rule, setting of speed limits 2024 in Attachment A. The authorises the Chief Executive to provide feedback to the Ministry of Transport before the consultation period closes on the 11th of July 2024. Delegates authority to the Chief Executive to approve any editorial changes or additions to the submission on the Land Transport Rule, setting of speed limits 2024 before it is provided. You've heard it. I'd like to now, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, we've got the Chief Executive's report on page 360.
So as is usual practice, we'll start with the financials, so Hayden can do his piece. And we may need Mo to make a comment in here also about the waste revenue.
Okay. Okay, let's get my act together. 360. Okay, when you're ready, Hayden.
I'll take the report as read. The key points currently in terms of our finances is that in terms of our capital revenue, that's driving basically our overall unfavourable position because our capital revenue is tied to basically our capital expenditure, and especially in the roading space. So there's been some delays in some of the storm damage projects. They look like they're going to be, well, they will be carried into next year, and that revenue will then follow those projects. So in terms of that, that explains sort of the really our capital.
Can I just ask a question go along? So is that capacity, or is it timing, or is it funding?
I'd have to refer that question to Mo.
The question
to Ed. Ed's here actually.
If I may, through the chair, the delay is, should we say, an administrative one on finance. We've always known that the delivery of these projects would take longer than a year, and that has been reported in the past. We're basically ahead of schedule on our programme, but we still have to carry funding over from this financial year to next financial year on the original budget that was approved, hence the apparent underspend on the projects.
Ian, will that number increase by rolling it over?
The number that's rolled over will not increase from the storm events that have occurred in the past, but it is emergency works, and it is likely that there will be additional funding required if there's another weather event.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the next part? Okay, carry on, Hayden.
In terms of our operating performance, we're favourable to both the forecast and the annual plan. Most of our activities are favourable. The biggest risk that we had was in the solid waste space, which has sort of has de-risked itself. Our revenue and expenditure are sort of following one another, so we haven't got this funding shortfall. And I'll let Mo probably elaborate a little bit more on it, but it's expected to carry on to the end of the financial year, and
So
has been reflected in the LTP. So
you've done some smoothing, have you? Moving money around there.
it's basically our revenues dropped, but our expenditures dropped too. So the kind of the variance has sort of netted itself out.
Yeah. Yeah. Come. Oh, you plugged in. Plugged in.
Yeah, good morning, the Mayor and councillors. So on the solid waste side, what's actually happened, I'll just cut it straight to the chase. The PAYT revenue that we forecasted is less than, so the PAYT revenue that we have received is less than what we forecasted. When we did the forecast, we didn't have any history when we changed to bin, so it was based on the best case scenario of a number of things. But where we have landed is less than what we thought we were going to get. But on the positive side, the revenue at the RTS has gone up, the refuse transfer station. So people are using the refuse transfer stations more, and we can see a big increase in revenue. So for the current financial year, the situation is that the PAYT revenue has gone down, the RTS revenue has gone up, and there is a net difference of about $1 million. But some of the contract costs that we thought will materialize didn't come to pass. So because of that, we will probably end up with a break-even situation for the current financial year. For 24-25, what we have done is we've done a similar adjustment, and we will bring a report to council in August to revisit the funding model for the solid waste activity, because the revenue streams need to be just revisited and looked at, but that's subject for a separate conversation.
Thank you, Mo. That aligns it a little bit more about how it's going to actually be. So smooth those budgets out so they sort of make sense a bit more.
Yep.
Okay. Martin.
So you're saying that people are buying less tags, which was kind of the equivalent of back in the past of buying less rubbish bags, but they're going and taking stuff to the RTS more than before.
That's correct, but there are also some other factors that have come into play. A lot of people purchased rubbish bags the previous financial year, and they were using it in the current year. So the revenue was actually in the previous year, and the service was delivered this year. So for which no money came, but the money came the year before.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and just basically ongoing issues in terms of the transition, really.
I hear a few people too also dropping it off at the RTS on the way home rather than using their bin.
Yep.
So that's another way where funding comes through that side.
So us moving to 7 days and increasing the opening hours has actually paid off. Yeah. People are using the centre as well.
Any other questions, Peter?
Yeah, thanks. So Mo, I kind of have a real concern around this waste, and I know we kicked off having to make best guesses because we hadn't done this before. However, when we did our December revision, we actually revised down the anticipated revenue based on what we had learned from the beginning of the thing. And now we get the April results, and we're falling short, quite a bit short of the revised December revised figure. And I have a concern that, and whilst I understand there has been an increase in revenue from RTS, I just have a concern that we're going to get to the end of the financial year and we're going to find out that there's a a bigger discrepancy than what we are currently planning for. And my concern is that, if I can speak candidly, my concern is that, when we do finally do our wash up for the FY24 financial year, that we're going to have a hole that somehow us elected members are going to have to go and try and explain to people. So I guess I'm fishing for some confidence that we actually have got a handle on this, on these now, the financials related to waste, and that given the period between May and from end of April through to the end of the financial year, we're not going to suddenly find that we've even got a much bigger hole that we're having to work through.
Just to answer that, I've got the draft May results in front of me, and we are pretty much tracking to April, so we've got a month to go. I think we're going to be okay.
That's a good thing to have.
Thank you.
And I think the other point to make clearly here is that this was sort of pushed on us by government to do. And what it's shown, though, people are using more recycling and food bins and not waste. So there must be a win-win at the other end in terms of landfill.
Correct.
The government should give us some money back. But anyway, I don't know if they'll do that. But we're doing the job well, is what we're doing. Okay, sorry, you wanted to comment?
Yes, some other things to take into account is also we have still not had a full 12-month run. So the end of year, we won't be having a hole, but we started this contract in September. So the full 12 months is September this year when we'll actually have a year's worth of data. And there's a number of factors that come into play and a lot of learnings in the process. But based on what Hayden said, and as far as I know, we're not anticipating a hole as such.
Can I just ask, Mo, is the commercial rubbish changed in terms of its concept of between recycling and all that? Is there any change in that market, or is it just in the residential?
It's mainly in the residential.
Right. Okay. Okay. Peter?
So this is just a more general question. Am I allowed to ask more general questions?
Absolutely.
So just further to what I was saying before, and then just the comment we had earlier with regards our capital expenditure, and where we're currently looking at something which is significantly different from where we were budgeting in terms of our current expenditure. I guess it's a question for Aileen, but I feel that it's difficult for us to get confidence about the projections and the budgeting when it seems that kind of just about every council meeting we are quite a bit astray from where we were forecasting and so on. I hear the big gap around roading and so on, but surely we have enough intelligence, enough experience around the table to be saying, well, these things are going to happen, so that we're not going to be forecasting $52 million worth of capital expenditure and then, only ending up at 35 or whatever it might be. So, and I find that frustrating. I want to be able to have confidence in the projections, knowing they'll never be right, but them being way off is a challenge to, help us understand.
You want to comment, Aileen?
I've got a couple of comments. I'll touch on the NZTA roading one first. We are straddling between two organizations working on two different timelines for budgets. So the Whangamatā budgeting cycle starts or commences in August each year and runs on a 12-month cycle, and we run from July to June. When storm events happen, we need to get our funding application into their system along with everybody else. And you sometimes get only one bite at the cherry. So you make the best educated guess and go and pitch your bid in their system. And if we get late, fall behind. So when we pitch that, we make certain assumptions in terms of how the spend might go. But the main idea is to get the total dollar amount into their system as soon as possible. Once you're in there, you can move. But if you're not in there in that first go, there'll be other people who get in because they only have got so much of money. So once we get the funding earmarked, yes, there will be some movement from what we said we will originally do. If we look at the current financial year, one of the tenders came $600,000 under budget, which was a bonus. So while we might have said we will achieve a spend, the money was actually not necessary because the tender was under the budget. Other cases were actually wet weather, which is beyond all of us. So you plan for work, but you can't seal roads in wet weather, and then things get moved. So there's a number of factors at play. So while a scenario is portrayed at the beginning as a forecast, there are other things that come into play as the thing moves. So it's not an incompetency issue or anything like that. It's just the way the system works.
Okay, that's that one. What else? You had another comment? That was one.
Well, can I just respond to that? Therefore, that reinforces, I guess, my position to say when I look at this stuff, I shouldn't even waste my time looking at it because it's going to change for reasons we don't understand because there's two organisations, etc., etc. So perhaps we need to take just a mindset and the value of these sorts of forecasts.
We can only report on what we know at the time we report, plus a little bit based on experience and knowledge.
Can I just go back to the waste pickup on the rubbish with the tag? So we realise the tags aren't being used as often. Well, they're not putting the rubbish out as often. In some a month or two, they're holding it or sharing it with neighbours, the one bin. The truck still has to come up the street and pick them up. But is the savings on the landfill side significant or less, or not worth
less? It's not, yeah. I'll split that into two parts. The revenue we are getting from the PAYT system is not what we thought because there's all sorts of things happening in that space. There are people with private bins, which we never had any statistics of, but is now coming into play that they are not using the council system, they're using their own private bin system. And then people having their bags and people sharing bins. So all of this is coming to light, and this is why we need to revisit our revenue model. And I don't want to make any assumptions now before we've done that revisiting as to what that it might be like.
Okay. Any more questions from Hayden around the financials? We've got some money maturing at the moment.
We have borrowed 10 million of pre-funding for April 25. So we'll end the year at 83 million borrowed versus an annual plan budget of 85 million. But effectively our net debt is 73 million because 10's been borrowed.
Delhi.
Sorry, it was just a quick question for Mo. What was the time frame around revisiting the funding model for solid waste?
It's in the next financial year, so I'll let Donna answer that.
Thanks, through the chair. So there are options with that. I mean, we're looking at doing a rating review. That would be the most appropriate time to pick that up and look at it. If we weren't doing a rating review, we could still look at the funding model for solid waste. What that would mean is we'd need to do a funding needs analysis for solid waste, and then once we'd come up with some options, we'd need to go out and consult on that, because when you're going to be changing the way you fund any activity, like a significant change, like which would affect whether you tip the rates, whether it was going to be on a district rate or a targeted rate or whatever, you have to consult. That's what the Local Government Rating Act says. So we could go out and do that. The fact that we're looking at doing a rating review as well, it would be way more cost effective to tie that into the rating review. Otherwise you would also run the risk of over consulting with your community as well, and they might get confused that you're consulting on the solid waste and there's a rate component to that, and then we go and do a rating review. So just because that we've indicated that we want to do a rating review, that would be my recommendation, that it would be done then.
Thank you, Donna. I got here Delhi. Oh, you happy, Delhi? Yeah. And Martin, you had a question?
Yeah, so talking about that review, you're talking about a funding review of the solid waste. Is that of the funding model for it. But is that also potentially going to be a bit of a review of the operation around it, or is it just looking at the funding model?
Two different things, Councillor Rodley. They'll be looked at separately. So once Waste Management complete that 12 months in September, we will look at how that 12 months has gone. So that will be a separate exercise looking at the PAYT, the revenue model.
Okay, so potentially that review of the operation side of it could happen without it having to wait for the rating review or the funding model review.
That's correct, because that's more on the performance of the contract. What have we done well? What have we done not so well?
Yep.
And where we need to improve.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of elected members would appreciate getting that, being able to have that once that September 12-month period is reached.
And we are looking forward to it as well. Just by way of information, we do have regular governance meetings with their senior management team. And I've just had one earlier this week, and we are making good progress. They have a lot of challenges in terms of reporting and data, and they're all starting to fall into place now. With they've got staff on board, so that's making good progress.
Thank you, Mo. Any more questions from Peter? Yes.
Yeah. Hayden, can I just page page 383, where you have the charts and the rates age balance.
Yes.
Thank you for putting the percentages, because we can see there that actually we're just tracking as we have always tracked in terms of the amount of rates outstanding, although the quantum is different. As a percentage of the overall rate taken, it's the same, so that's really helpful. Could I request, when we get to the end of the financial year and begin the new financial year, that we just carry 3 years of, so keep these 2 years and then add so that we can just have a look over the period. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else as we move forward? Yes, Rika.
Just a question for Mo, and this is under our top 10 capital projects around the drinking water standards. In Matarangi, I believe some works there have been delayed because of the consenting phasing. Is that
water or wastewater?
This is under our drinking water standards.
Drinking water standards,
upgrades.
yes.
Yeah.
It was mainly to do with the land, acquisition of the land.
And where are we with that?
That process is now complete, so the project can get underway.
Perfect. Yep. So we're now into the consenting phase?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Hayden, Donna and Mo before we go back to Aileen? Okay, so Aileen.
Great, thank you. Okay, so you'll see, while that looks like a lot of legoimas, and it really is, we have dealt with them, and Alison was very carefully saying we're under control at the moment. So the number of open legoimas that we have at the moment is actually relatively low. We're speculating that we had quite a flurry ahead of the, as part of the LTP process. There's some quite interesting ones there, which you can see. What else we got? RFSs. Lorna's here if there's any questions around this, but I gather it's going quite well with the parks and open spaces, which now have closing the loop system embedded into that.
Yeah.
Lorna, I wonder if you have any comments you wanted to make?
Just that it's, we're going department by department. We're almost finished with all of the top 6 departments with that implementation of a response. We have got data that's going to the next community boards, which is their quarterly data, and that will show the number of RFSs that have been outstanding longer than 6 months to a year. So we've been able to just try and collate that data. Also, we have had audit look at the RFS system, and we're also doing internal audits monthly, and as I've said in the previous report, the standard of responses from staff and contractors has improved significantly. So education and training has been improved, so that's going quite well too.
And to give you some feedback from my end, Lorna, that people are feeling that they're getting confidence around them. and they're getting the response. So I think congratulations, it's moving in the right direction.
Awesome. Just to note, the Parks and Open Spaces team remained under significant pressure. You'll recall when we did the prioritisation for projects as part of the LTP, we drew a doability line at basically renewals. So they're still quite challenged in getting through the work, and they're still about a year ahead of them. We've also got a time and motion study running in that team to have a look at what the pressures are and get a handle on the scale of their challenges. Under the road to recovery update there, you'll see the comment. You'll recall we were aiming our road resilience application at the $6 billion that was set aside for recovery. You can see that that has
different number
evaporated and is now down to $3 billion, and they're looking to close off the budgets very shortly. They put up a little bit in contestable funding, and we've got 2 applications going in for. They've got very tight criteria. We can't get CapEx now. It's the criteria is any OPEX that basically accelerates a project that assists with resilience. So we've got 2 small parks and reserves projects going in there as applications in the next day or 2. We are obviously still waiting on the regional land transport plan, which is still waiting on the final GPS. Interestingly, I did hear that the final GPS might look a little bit different to the one that was put out a few months ago. So still quite a few question marks, and as part of the LTP you've just adopted, we've retained the assumptions that we had in there. Essentially because we have no better assumptions to make at this point in time. So things are still quite a bit up in the air about what that land transport funding might look like. We still have the potential to look at regional and city deals should we fail on the regional land transport funding bid. Probably the rest of that I can take as read. We know where we are with local roading. We know where we are with Three Waters.
Yeah.
Resource management reforms are continuing at pace.
Mm-hmm.
We have submissions into the relevant ones. We haven't done a submission on the freshwater bill. I note out that our local MP is now the chair of the select committee that heard the fast track legislation. Kupu event.
What was that comment?
Our local MP is
Scott.
now the chair of the select committee that was hearing the fast track, the environment committee.
He wasn't that before, but
After the exit of the previous chair. Yep. Kupu, we had a fantastic day on Friday. If anyone has a look at my LinkedIn post, you'll see, well, you may not see, but it's had over 6,000 views, which is phenomenal. So obviously, and there's quite a lot of activity on LinkedIn and social media around the Kupu facility. There was an excellent post went up on Sunday night from the Coast Guard saying they came in late at night and fabulous to come in under lights. So the lights made all the difference for them. And that's probably enough from me. I'm happy to take any questions.
questions for Aileen? No, that's a good sign. Okay, well done. So we've just got a recommendation there that is to receive the Chief Executive Report dated 6th of June, moved by Riga, seconded by Peter. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Aileen. Okay, moving on. The Mayoral Report, which is pretty straightforward. It's about what Len's been doing. And it's on page 385. Just got to get there myself. Okay. Yeah, so he's been a busy guy and he's not too well at the moment, so we just wish him well. And we can help him in every way, we will. And we want him to just get better before he comes back to work. So, yeah. Any comments on his workload or his what in the last little while? Okay. Okay, moved by Dally, seconded by myself. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Okay, now that's the end of this part of the meeting. We're going to move into exclude the public. Just take a little while we turn off our recording.
I'm happy to move.
Okay, so yeah, moved by Robin, second by Rika. All those in favour, we close the meeting. Against? Carried. Thank you.